Hi everyone, good day and welcome to my channel. It's Nushola Sewing. In this tutorial we'll be learning how to make this trousers you can see on the screen. This is a fitted female trouser. We'll be learning how to make it, so do well to watch this video, like and also share this video. Thank you. So we'll be using an Ankara fabric. This is like 6 yards of Ankara fabric, and we'll be like replicating the clothes that we have on the screen, as you can see, but this is just for the trouser part. So I've already gone ahead to fold my trouser into two. For you to get the exact measurements for this part, you can just divide your thigh measurement by 2, then add extra 4 inches to it. Extra 4 inches, that's if you're on the big side, so you don't have a whole lot of trouser waiting, a whole lot of fabric wasting rather. So the next thing I'm doing is just marking my starting line. I am just ruling my starting line. So the next thing I'm going to do is to mark my hip line, where my hip line will be. Because this trouser is going to have a band, I came up by 2 inches, then mark my hip line at that point. My hip line was like 9 inches, so I just marked it at that point. Then for the crotch line, what I normally do is to divide my hip measurements, divide by 4, then whatever I get will serve as my crotch line. Then I brought my measuring tape back to the starting line, then marked out my crotch line. So the next thing I'm going to do is to mark my thigh line. So I came down from my crotch line by 1 inch. I came down from my crotch line by 1 inch. You can come down by 1.5 or 2. Then what I'm just going to do now is just to draw a straight line across. So I'm just replicating all the measurement I took earlier, then drawing them out with my ruler. So after that was done, the next thing I'm going to do is to pick up my measuring tape. The first thing I'm going to do is on the waistline, I am going to mark my hip measurements divided by 4. I am just going to place my measuring tape on the waistline and mark my hip measurement divided by 4. Then endeavor to add 1 inch so that it not be too tight. Add 1 inch for ease, so it not be too tight. So I mark it there. Then the next thing I'm going to do is to come down on my hip line too, and also mark the hip measurements divided by 4. Then after that, I'm going to come down on the crotch line and do the same thing. Mark my hip measurement divided by 4. So on the hip line, I'm just going to mark my crotch extension. I'm going to mark my hip measurements divided by 4. Then I'm going to divide it by 4 again, then mark it there. For example, now if your hip measurement is 32, you divide it by 4, which is 8. Then you will now divide that 8 by 4, which will give you 2. Then that 2 will serve as your crotch extension. So the next thing I'm going to do is just to rule out the part I've marked. That is the hip measurement divided by 4 I've marked. Then at that point I came up by 1 inch, then went in with my curve rule and draw a curve. At this point you can use your free hand to draw the curve, but I went ahead and did mine with my curve rule. Then later on I just used my free hand. So now what we are going to do now is to get the gray line, what is called the gray line. So we're just going to divide whatever we have on our hip line by 2, then mark it there. We'll mark it on the hip line and also on the thigh line. So this gray line will run through from the thigh line down to the hemline. So I'm just taking my new measurement. At that point I took out 2 inches for the band, then marked my new measurements, then also marked the length of my trouser plus 2 to 3 inches allowance, but here I used 2 inches. I marked 2 inches allowance at that point. Then I'm just going to take the same measurements at this point before I rule with my ruler. So after that was done, I went in with my ruler to connect the points together. So after that was done, I just went ahead to mark out what I got when I divided the whole of my hip by 2. Like when I took the gray line, I just took it along so I can just make a straight line. So now the next thing I'm just going to do is just to mark out the straight line I made earlier. So the next thing I'm going to do at this point is just to put in my measurement. Starting from the crotch line, I marked my waist measurement divided by 4, then I marked it there. I'm not going to put allowance on the front part of this trouser. On the hip line, I'm taking my hip measurement plus 1 inch. I'm just checking to see if it corresponds, and after that I just marked it, my hip measurement divided by 4 plus 1 inch at that point. So I just marked it there. Then on my thigh line, I'm taking my thigh measurement divided by 2. I am just going to mark my thigh measurement divided by 2 on that thigh line plus 1 inch allowance. So that's just basically what I am doing. So on the nail line, you're going to put your nail measurement divided by 2. So I just shared what I got equally along the gray line, then added 0.5 inches to both sides. For example, if your nail round measurement is 6, so you divide that 6 into 2, that is 3. You put 3 at one side of the gray line and put 3 at the other side of the gray line, then add 0.5 each at each side of the gray line. Then you also do the same for your nail round, your ankle round measurement rather. So after that was done, I just went ahead to connect my lines together. At this point, you can go in with your ruler or you can use your free hand, but I made use of my ruler. Then at some point I had to use my curve rule to get the hip curve, and I also use my free hand too. So basically what I'm just doing is just connecting the lines together. So after drawing out my lines from the waistline, I came up by half an inch. So you can go up by half an inch from the waistline, and then you're just going to connect it down to meet the crotch, just like I am doing. I drew a slanted line to meet that half an inch from my crotch line, as you can see. So that's just all for the trouser pattern. As you can see, the shape is well defined, like you can see the hip shape and everything. So the next thing you're now going to do is just to go in with your scissors and then just cut out. So that's all for the front pattern. Now we'll be drafting the back pattern of the trouser. So I've already gone ahead to fold my working piece and place my pattern on top, my front pattern. Then on this waistline, I just came up by 2 inches. Then by the side, I am coming out by 1.5 inch. Then for the back pattern, you add 1 inch extra for that allowance. I forgot to add to mine, but you add to yours 1 inch extra for that allowance. Then you also mark it up. Then I'm going to go to the crotch line. Then I'll add 2 inch to the crotch line. I'm adding 2 inch extra to the crotch line. You can add 2.5 for yours, but me, I'm using 2 inches. Then I am just going to add 1.5 inches throughout the length of the trouser. So on the waistline, we have 1.5 inch extra plus 1 inch for that allowance. Then on the crotch line, we have 2 inches. Then along the other part of the trouser, we have another 1.5 inches. So the next thing we are going to do is just to go ahead and connect everything with our ruler. So at the crotch curve, I am adding 2 inches to the crotch curve too. I am adding 2 inches to the crotch curve because I'll be connecting it to the other part I've already marked earlier. So I'm just adding 2 inches. I'm just going to connect it. You can use your straight line or you can go in with your curve. So you just have to just connect it together, then connect it to meet the waistline. So from the waistline, you're just going to connect a straight line, a slanted line to meet the 2 inches you came up by. If you just connect it from the edge to that 2 inches, you're just going to draw a slant line across. So after that was done, you're just going to go ahead and go in with your scissors. I think this is just the easiest way to draft the basic back pattern. It's just very easy, it's not too difficult. So you just add your inches, your allowances to the back, then you're just going to cut them out. So that is all for the front and the back pattern. So the next thing I'm just going to do is just to mark the wrong sides. I am supposed to go ahead now and cut the band, but since there'll be a fly zipper, I will not be cutting out the band now. So the cutting out of the band and the fly zipper will be in the sewing tutorial. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.